want to take a cold shower because that means I have to get all uncomfortable and I don't want to get out of my comfort zone. I just want to be warm and cozy. I want my mommy.
Okay, butter.
Wow, butter is back. I mean, who knew? This was on the cover of Time magazine a couple of months back, and the heading was the headline.
Butter
was,
is back. You heard him.
Were wrong because our scientists were telling us to stop eating butter, stop eating fat. Your body is desperate for fat.
Eat butter instead of carbohydrates, this guy says.
That's our signal as a hunter-gatherer. We had carbs at the end of the summer, early fall, sweeten, ripened fruit. It sends a signal, make fat for the winter. This is the winter that never comes.
Get your carb on. Now you might get a little voice inside your head that says, no, I don't want to get out of my comfort zone. You tell that voice to shut the fuck up. You're doing those push-ups. You're doing those sit-ups. Always start your day with some kind of movement, some kind of exercise. You'll feel a lot better for it. Don't forget to be hydrated. Drink at least 3 liters of water a day. That's almost a gallon. A gallon has about 3.78 liters, so that's almost 4 liters in this.
Necessary for life are air, water, and food. And if you don't have enough air, you'll die in minutes. If you don't have enough water, you'll die in days. And for most people, you'll die in weeks without food, several weeks. That's the general topic outline of today's discussion.
Adequate fluid intake can be achieved by simple interventions, just by offering people liquids throughout the day.
The consequences occur at the central nervous system, at the gut, and at the kidney. It may be that dehydration causes suffering.
Suffering.
If you could do a whole gallon, that's even better. I like to do a liter in the morning, a liter in the midday, and a liter at night. Hydrate up.
Oh, look at all that blood. Doesn't just bring up all those childhood memories of your mom slaughtering those animals for you. If you eat meat, this is how you have to eat it. Raw. Blood, fat, bone. Dig your teeth into it. That's how you eat meat. You don't cook it. You don't season it with a bunch of vegan seasonings and sauces and sweet sugary sauces. Live up to your true carnivore and bite into the raw flesh. That's how you're supposed to do it. Beef accelerates the aging process.
You know, you hear a lot of vegans say that meat and animal products will clog your arteries. I don't find that a very convincing argument. I think a lot of people aren't really convinced by that. So what I'd like to do is provide you with some information to not only springboard that argument, but back it with science. And what I'd like to talk about today is advanced glycation end products. Now you might be thinking, what the fuck is that? Well, to give you a little clue, look at the abbreviation. Now these substances are formed from a process called glycation. And that's when you take a carbohydrate and bind it to a protein from heating something at a very high temperature. If you've ever put cookies in the oven, you know, they come out a nice golden brown. Well, that nice golden brown is the visual representation or evidence of these very AGEs that I'm talking about. Now, barbecuing meat is one of the worst things that you can do. Barbecued meat, especially bacon, is very high in these AGEs. And what these do is they accelerate a lot of age-related degenerative or chronic diseases like diabetes, Alzheimer's, and heart disease.
Now, whenever someone talks about heart disease and eventually heart attacks, a lot of times people talk about clogged arteries. And when I first heard that when I was a kid, I assumed that, hey, the heart is this pump and it has these arteries that are supplying blood to the rest of the body. That must be what people are talking about when they talk about clogged arteries. Maybe some type of clogging forms in these really big arteries over here. And at some point they get so big that the blood can't flow through them, and then the person dies. And that's what I used to think what a heart attack was when I was a kid. But this is not the case. This is not the case. When people talk about coronary artery disease, or when they talk about clogged arteries, they're not talking about these big arteries or the big veins that are going to or away from the heart. They're actually talking about the smaller arteries that are actually supplying blood to the heart. So when people talk about coronary artery disease, or when they're talking about clogged arteries, not these big pipes. They're talking about the supply of blood to the heart. So the first thing when people talk about kind of clogged arteries, the official thing they're referring to is atherosclerosis. Fancy word, but all it really means is,
So basically what you're doing is causing a lot of oxidative stress and inflammation to a lot of the smaller arteries. And this could lead to things like stroke and cardiovascular disease. You're also increasing vascular permeability. You're increasing arterial stiffness. Also, your blood vessels lose their ability to dilate because you're inhibiting nitric oxide production, which nitric oxide is produced by your endothelial cells. And that can lead to things like erectile dysfunction. These endothelial cells can also start to bind to things like macrophages and other cells. So very unwanted symptoms here.
So I want to make it very clear what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about these big pipes. I'm not talking about these big pipes that go into or away from the heart. I'm talking about the arteries that supply blood to the actual muscles of the heart. Remember, the heart is made up of muscles. It needs blood itself to do the pumping. It needs oxygen itself. So what you can imagine.
So AGE is definitely something that you want to limit your intake of. I got this list off of the U.S. National Library of Medicine. That's where I do a lot of my research. And I go to the actual medical manuscripts, the medical journals. I don't fuck around. I don't go on livestrong.com. I don't read AOL news articles. This list is kind of like an inventory of all these different foods, and it gives you the AGE scores for each one. Here you can see a lot of the meats are in the thousands, and that's per 90-gram portions. Now look at bacon. Bacon has a score of 91,577. So, I mean, and that's just fried for 5 minutes with no added oil. This is just plain bacon. All right. Now we scroll down here, and I'm going to show you guys the complete list later on, and I'll even attach this list in the description down below the video if you guys want to download it for yourselves. But look at bananas. One banana, which is about 100 grams, has 9. And then you have those paleo primal people promoting bacon like it's some health food. It's bro science. It's just blindfold science. They don't look at the facts. So you guys can go through this and see that meat has significantly higher numbers of AGEs compared to plant-based foods. But the more you process and cook plant-based foods, the higher the AGE score gets. So the whole point of this and the takeaway is that raw foods are optimal when it comes to anti-aging and antioxidants, keeping disease away, and avoiding a lot of those age-related degenerative diseases.